Walking down the dairy or meat aisle used to involve a simple binary choice. Today, that same walk means navigating a flood of dozens of packaged alternatives, each wrapped in bold marketing promises about health and the planet. To figure out what actually works, we are going to audit 24 different meat and milk replacements. We'll strip away the branding and look strictly at the science to see which swaps actually benefit our physical bodies, our bank accounts, and the global climate. The need for a shift is clear because the standard Western diet is failing on a biological level. On average, our saturated fat intake exceeds medical recommendations by 60%. At the same time, we are running severe deficits in crucial nutrients, falling nearly 40% short on both dietary fiber and potassium. Looking at this breakdown chart of the specific health risks associated with red meat, the danger becomes quantifiable. The high rates of colorectal cancer and heart disease linked to beef and pork are primarily driven by two components: heme iron, which accounts for 42% of the associated mortality risk, and high cholesterol, accounting for another 24%. But then there is the massive ecological toll. The global livestock sector alone is responsible for roughly 20% of all human-driven greenhouse gas emissions, alongside massive biodiversity loss. Transitioning away from the spaceline diet is biologically and ecologically necessary, but successfully making that change means walking through a highly processed, high-tech minefield of modern food products, where not every alternative is created equal. To evaluate our options, we can plot these foods on a synthesis index, a scientific grading scale from 0 to 100 that combines health outcomes, environmental impact, and consumer cost. Sitting at the very bottom of the scale is conventional beef, earning a score of just 13. But the worst-performing milk alternative sits dangerously close to that bottom tier. Almond milk drops in with an abysmal score of 36. That low score is driven by two major flaws. Nutritionally, it takes 4 servings of almond milk to match the calories of a single serving of dairy. Ecologically, replacing dairy with almond milk actually increases your dietary water use by 67%. You can also bypass cultivated or lab-grown meat. Aside from carrying a production cost up to 40,000 times higher than a regular beef burger, it is designed to replicate animal cells perfectly, meaning it carries the exact same biological health risks as conventional meat. Moving up the index, we reach Tier 2, heavily processed plant-based foods. This is where you find standard veggie burgers, scoring in the low 70s, and most plant milks, scoring in the low 60s. These options do deliver solid results. Eating a veggie burger instead of beef reduces your chronic disease mortality risk by about 5%. Environmentally, the gains are massive. These products generate only 5 to 6% of the greenhouse gas emissions of conventional beef. The drawback of Tier 2 is the checkout counter. Consumers face extreme markups for these processed swaps, with products like veggie bacon costing 99% more than conventional pork bacon. There is also a hidden biological cost. Many of these modern alternatives fall into the category of ultra-processed foods. Large cohort studies consistently link high UPF consumption to weight gain, cardiometabolic issues, and even impaired executive cognitive function in older adults. While these highly processed plant alternatives successfully address the climate crisis driven by livestock, they trade one set of problems for another, introducing steep economic barriers and entirely new public health risks. To find the absolute best performers, we have to look to the very top of the index. The reigning champions score between 93 and 97 out of 100. These are entirely unprocessed plant proteins: soybeans, peas, lentils, and traditional ferments like tempeh and tofu. They win on biology because they completely eliminate the heme iron and cholesterol found in red meat. At the same time, they flood the body with the exact nutrients missing from the Western diet. In fact, 52% of their total mortality reduction benefit comes directly from their high fiber content. Ecologically, they are unmatched. Cultivating whole soybeans and peas requires roughly 2% of the land, water, and emissions required to produce an equivalent amount of beef. Looking at this radar chart, we see their final advantage. While the axes for health benefits and planetary savings expand outward, the cost savings do as well. Choosing dried beans and lentils over beef reduces the overall cost of your diet by up to 88%. The scientifically optimal diet doesn't require expensive laboratory technology, heavy industrial processing, or steep grocery bills. It relies on the simplest, oldest, and cheapest ingredients available. Knowing the data allows us to establish a few highly practical rules for your next trip to the store. First is the milk rule. Bypass the almond milk entirely. Default to oat or soy milk to get a comparable micronutrient profile to dairy without taking on the severe water footprint of almonds. Second is the meat rule. Treat processed veggie burgers and sausages as occasional stepping stones. For daily eating, optimize your health and your budget by building meals around black beans, lentils, or tempeh. Making this transition doesn't require a rigid ban on the foods you currently eat. It is simply about making informed substitutions where they matter most. By swapping just a few traditional meat and dairy servings a week for whole plant proteins, you apply the highest leverage investment possible for a longer life, a stabilized climate, and a thicker wallet.